Afroman's trial convinces me that we are living in a simulation. Just kidding, but seriously, that trial was a trip to watch, and it had me feeling all sorts of ways. There were so many strange happenings and little coincidences throughout the trial. I kept picking up themes of duality, and I kept noticing little nuances that highlighted the fact that things were not always just so black and white. So I want to talk about the most notable things I took from trial and give some of my thoughts and reactions along the way. My name is ACAB True Crime, and I use my background in clinical psychology and criminal psychology to take a psychological approach to understanding our legal system, the people involved in it, and the people affected by it. Oh, and also, and we are also a 420 friendly channel here, and I'm wearing my Super Kush t-shirt today to show our 420 support. I already have major problems with policing in this country, and this trial honestly reinforced every one of those beliefs. So, just very basically, this is how we got here. So, Afroman's home was raided by the local sheriff's department in Adams County, Ohio. And this is a small county of about 26,000 people or so. And the probable cause behind that raid ultimately appears to have had no real basis. The sheriff's department said that they received information from a confidential informant that Afroman was trafficking rugs out of his house and that he also had kidnapped people and was keeping in his dungeon. Turns out that Afroman doesn't even have a basement. During the raid, $400 of Afroman's money went missing, or it was, in other words, stolen. 2 doors were broken during the raid, or 1 gate and 1 door, using a battering ram. And the officers showed up with riot shields and assault rifles. And also, Afroman's children witnessed all of that tactical chaos firsthand. Afterwards, Afroman did what Afroman does, and he made some music about his experience. That included music about the individual officers that were involved in the raid, and the police ended up not liking that, and they ended up suing Afroman for defamation, and that is how we got to this trial. And my immediate reaction to all of this is literally the fucking audacity. He makes a legal song, and they sue him. So yeah, it didn't really surprise me, but it absolutely pisses me off. And then the trial started and things just started getting even crazier. As the testimony started coming out, it began to look like Afroman's songs may have been pointing to or exposing much bigger issues involving the individual officers who were suing him. And that included allegations and testimony touching on DV, possible of a minor, exploitation of vulnerable women struggling with addiction, theft of and money during stops, and other abuses of power. None of that is shocking in the broader sense, but what was shocking was watching it all start to unfold in court. Especially in a case these officers set into motion themselves twice. And the whole time, I kept wondering, how did anyone think this was a good idea? And like, who is advising these people? On the other hand, I really loved watching Afroman during this trial. I have been a fan of his since the late 90s and early 2000s. And I just really admire him both then and now for really being committed and always staying true to himself. There's a funny little example of that during trial that I'm going to play right here that I thought was super funny.
I don't know, but I don't know. There's a lot of big, but
That'd be like one every 3 days.
And you had a residence here in Adams County, correct?
Yes.
I wonder why he lives there, if that's where he was from.
You've been performing for plenty of 30 years, is that right?
all my life.
And is it
It's like-
fair to say that one of the first big hits you had was But Then I Got High?
Because I got high.
Because I Got High? And do you think it's accurate to say that that song has had over 300 million views on YouTube?
That sounds right.
Oh my
You have a
god.
large presence on social media, obviously.
Depends on your definition of large. There's bigger people than me, but I'm all right.
And on Instagram, is it fair to say that you have 247,000 followers?
Yeah, I got some of them the other day.
I just got some of them the other
You
day.
got new ones coming all the time
Well, especially
Just a
now.
little.
because the trial's coming up.
Y'all publicity from the office's law salinity is running up my numbers.
So yeah, that's Afroman. And I loved watching him use his art and creativity to respond to something that seemed like it was a really horrible, violating experience. And this is part of why art is so powerful. It gives people a way to tell the truth about what happened to them, to process it, and maybe to drag some powerful people at the same time. Yeah, so I've been rooting for Afroman since day one, and I definitely thought he kicked ass on the stand. And it was exciting to watch him speak his truth with such conviction and vigor, and I thought he did a great job. But even though I was slightly fangirling Afroman during the trial, that didn't mean that I agreed with everything that Afroman and his counsel stood on during the case. And that is where things get a little bit more complicated for me. I wouldn't call anyone involved in this trial a raging feminist by any means. I wasn't surprised by some of the things that I saw coming out from the plaintiffs during the trial, but I was disappointed by several of the things that came from Afroman and his lawyer, DJ Osborne Jr. So one example was DJ's use of the example WAP during closing arguments, and it just felt like the defense framed it as something that was crude or disrespectful, which honestly kind of surprised me. And I absolutely loved the witness's response.
So you didn't have to teach him that wasn't real?
Right. What? Okay, what wasn't real? WAP is real. Oh my God, is this serious right now? Like, wait, is this guy like calling himself out and this woman and saying that they don't know about WAP? Like, really? I'm sorry. Am I Lucifer or something that I know about WAP? It's like, I don't know. It seems weird, but
You've heard the song, correct? Do you believe it's a literal interpretation?
oh my, what? A literal interpretation of what is going on, dude. This is so fucking weird. This is like, am I hallucinating right now? Is this real life? Landon, is this real? Is this as weird as I think it is?
Would you agree it's derogatory towards women?
No. Okay, thank you. Yes, for feminism, please. Like, that is not derogatory. And it's not fake. This dude is totally calling himself out as like the worst lay in Adams County. Okay. I mean, sorry, but
Even though it says nasty things about him?
yeah. And what's nasty about a wet ass pussy, motherfucker? Okay. He obviously doesn't know about this.
No, I mean, it's the artist's opinion, I guess. That's why I think
I love her.
Opinion you like, but
Yeah, sure. This is awkward. Okay. Clip this to script. So yeah, shout out to her. I thought it was strange that Afroman's lawyer didn't recognize what WAP stood for. I mean, it seemed like he was presenting it that like WAPs were inherently degrading, which they're not. If anything, they're associated with female sexual empowerment and pleasure and comfort. So trying to use that as some kind of moral argument just didn't really land for me. Another pattern that stood out to me was the broader pattern of sexism. Afroman has always kind of had a womanizing style to his music that goes all the way back to the 90s. And I think that that reflects just his generation. He's definitely one of the OGs and a bit of the era that he came up in. But I thought it was full, especially in Lisa Lickum Low, where that female officer is depicted in a sexualized way that was obviously meant to shame her and humiliate her. It may be the old school feel, but it also isn't the 90s anymore. And it just felt icky in the way that the songs use sexuality to degrade someone. And then there was also transphobia. And it was really disappointing to see Afroman question whether that female officer was actually a woman, bringing up her body and her voice and her genitalia. And I know this overall case wasn't brought forth by Afroman, but also because of what he chose to talk about in that song, he could have chosen anything else. But what he chose made her testify in a public courtroom about really personal aspects about her identity. It's provocative, but we already live in a world where trans people are heavily targeted and scrutinized. So adding to that, especially in a legal setting, just felt unnecessary and cruel. And just quickly, because this matters, and I think it's important to put out there, there's a pretty popular narrative going around that says trans people are dangerous and predatory. And people are freaking out like, why is a man wanting to come into a woman's restroom and blah, 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 blah. But statistically, that's just not true. People are actually far more likely to be harmed by someone they already know, especially men who are in positions of trust and authority. You know, like the people that are already involved in this case that Roman talks about, the two brothers that got in trouble, and one of them left the police force for sending inappropriate pictures to underage females. And what we've seen with priests or Boy Scout leaders, et cetera, I think if we're actually wanting to talk about safety, that's where the focus should be and not on trans people. And all of that taken together is what made this part of the defense disappointing to me. So back to the simulation theory, because if this case didn't already feel weird enough, there were a few moments that almost felt a little too on the nose to ignore. On day one, towards the end of the day, I noticed something that felt straight out of a movie. Oh, what is this? I love that jacket. Oh my God, remember when the pre-trial motions, when the judge made that weird comment about how we will judge people based on what they look like, but we shouldn't, even though we still set it up that way in the courtroom since he wears a robe. And I think it's like really funny that Afroman showed up today with, I guess Afroman went and got a big coat. But it reminds me, oh my God, I love this metaphor. So there's the judge in his robe and we've got Afroman in his robe, but Afroman is pure white and comfy, way more enlightened. And the judges, I mean, it's obviously the difference between dark and light here. You know what I mean? Afroman is the light in this situation, and this judge is the epitome of dark, and it just plays out so beautifully. Life can be so weird sometimes, you know? I might be going a little. So yeah, you can see you've got the judge in all black, and then Afroman was like in all pristine white. And normally we associate those colors with good and evil in a very obvious way. But here it almost felt flipped. Like the person you'd expect to represent authority and rightness is visually coded one way, while the person society normally writes off or might dismiss, the weed smoking rapper, is presented the other. And that reversal ended up reflecting what was actually happening in this case. Then on the final day, I had this weird reaction where the whole thing almost felt like scripted, like everything lined up just too perfectly.
I'm going to give you the complete song and then summarize it because I only want to say it once. Are you familiar with the song Wet Ass Pussy?
Yes,
Is that a rap song?
it is.
Has your students played it in class?
Once, and I asked them to please turn it off.
When they're
Oh my God. Okay. So this is just pure gold. What the hell? I cannot believe that we have, and is such, he's iconic for this trial and he didn't even ask for it, you know? Like this was a divine intervention from the divine for Afroman to get sued and for this trial to happen. Because why do we get to be able to see like this stuck up white guy being like, this song, Wet Ass Pussy? Have you heard that song before? Have you heard the children play Wet Ass Pussy? Let me say it one more time. And then this is kind of where it gets kind of wild. The plaintiff's attorney makes a statement that echoes that same idea, but from the opposite perspective.
You are here because you agreed to be here. You showed up on the first day. Not everybody does. A lot of people don't respond to their summons. You did. I asked you, do you want to be on this jury? And you all said, yes, I agree to be on this jury. You're all here now in this place, in this court for a reason. And I believe there's a power higher than us that brought you here today to do this job. You are the chosen people to do it. Nobody.
Hello? Okay, oh my God. It is so freaking weird, you guys. Like, what? Okay, this is creepy. I was going to say, I don't really like love with this guy. Like, how this is going. So far, I don't like his tone. And this is before he started talking about the God shit. Okay. Did not like his tone. It sounded like he was kind of like, you said you would. You promised. If you're a decent person, this is what you'll do. Like, very condescending. And he's like kind of commanding. He's not like actually being real with them. He's like, you need to do this. If you're a good person, fuck you. Who gets to determine who's a good person? Oh, I bet you might think it has to do with whether or not you're like Christian and white, because now you're fucking starting to talk about God and being the chosen people. You know, it's actually a little ironic. Okay, there's two things that have made me like, that's kind of interesting about this trial. And from yesterday, one thing that I remember that I definitely did think was interesting was just seeing the contrast between the judge standing there in those black robes and then Afroman standing there in his white suit. And it was like a white, huge coat that looked like basically a robe. And I know that Afroman has very good foresight because we can see everything is coming together too perfectly. This is why sometimes I am like, okay, well, there has to be something else out there, because how is all of this weird quinky dink shit happening? You know what I mean? Like metaphorical, weird, kind of like serendipity, you know what I mean? So this all seems too serendipitous. And then what was interesting, okay, so then just earlier today on the stream about how it just seems like so predestined that Afroman got this case and he must have been the chosen one for this. And maybe it was a divine intervention that he got this case. And it's so weird that now the fucking opposite lawyer, like the bad guy lawyer, is saying the exact same shit that I'm now saying is pretty huge and like cringe, and then I don't appreciate it. But which is funny because that's pretty hypocritical of me because I just said that shit earlier. I wouldn't say that shit to a jury. You know what I mean? I don't know. Now I've confused myself. That's okay. There's always some gray area when everyone thinks in black and white, and we can't do that. But this guy sucks, and it's ironic that he just said the same thing that I did, but in a different way. You know, like the jury was chosen for the case. Yes, I agree with you. The jury was chosen for this case, and so is Afroman, and they found each other. Thank God. Like, I don't know where you came in and why, Mr. Bad Guy, but anyways. So yeah, just was interesting that myself, who I feel like was more on Afroman's side, and the plaintiff's lawyer both kind of framed it in a way where it was like something larger than life or outside of ourselves, kind of that type of framing. But they ended up being in completely different directions. And then when you put that together with the visual symbolism, it just all starts to feel less random. It highlights how this case completely flips the narrative people expect. The police, who are usually framed as the good guys, end up being the ones in the wrong. And Afroman, the person who people might write off, is the one who comes out looking justified. That's just what made this whole thing feel so surreal to me. Overall, outside of the stuff that I already criticized in this video, I actually really liked watching this trial, and I really loved the outcome. It kind of felt like in your face, you know, and I think definitely Herman is a lot smarter than most people give him credit for. And a lot of the assumptions that people make about him, I think, are obviously rooted in stereotypes that honestly just don't hold up when you actually watch what happened in this case. But at the same time, that didn't mean that everything on Afroman's side was perfect. And I think it's important to hold both of those things at once. And I think the biggest takeaway for me has been more of what the case actually exposed. And we can look at how people assign these good and bad characteristics and who they can trust and what narratives they default to, but it can be so easily flipped when you actually take a closer look. This whole thing felt less like a straightforward trial and more like something that was almost already written. And at the end of the day, you can still win the case and also be left with bigger problems worth talking about.